and you're tuned in to Spokane Public Radio. That's KPBX in Spokane, KIBX Bonners Ferry, KLGG Kellogg, KOMQ Omak, KPBG Oroville, KTWP Twisp, KPBW Brewster, and KPBY Colville. We're rolling into the 2 o'clock hour, which means it's now time for your Afternoon in Jazz with Rachel Bade McMurphy, and we have a very special in-studio broadcast today. Two of them, actually. The first one is in celebration of Mike Waldrop's Origin release, which is called Native Son, and today is the release date of that recording. So today we're going to interview him and play some of the record, as well as have him play in the studio. And then in the 3 o'clock hour, I will have guests Kai and Natalie Wagner, who are here to perform with Jared Hall over at Hamilton Listening Room. So first of all, we're going to start out with a in-studio recording of Mike Waldrop playing piano on his composition, which is called Belgrade. And that was Mike Waldrop playing in studio for celebration of his release Native Son, which is on Origin Records. And that was a tune called Belgrade. And now we will hear the version that was played on the recording. Thanks for tuning in to Spokane Public Radio. that selection is called Belgrade. That comes from Michael Waldrop's brand new release, Native Son, which is out today. And we happen to have Mike in the studio with us. Welcome, Mike.
Yeah, great to be here.
And you were just playing the piano earlier. Lovely job at that. What's it like to be both a pianist and an excellent percussionist? How do you deal with that?
I learned how to play piano in college. I didn't really start playing piano until my first year of college in class piano, and took a liking to it and aspired to mostly play jazz piano so I could improvise and compose. So that's always been a side thing for me to do, and it's it's facilitated the composition side of what I do. So,
and I think many musicians are like that with their use of the piano, so that's no surprise. But we have a brand new recording put out today on Origin Records, and is this your fourth release on Origin or third?
It's the fourth, yeah.
Yeah.
The first two were big band projects, Time Within Itself, and then Origin Suite, and I played drums on all of those. And then the third one was kind of a modern classical percussion CD, and then now this one is piano trio with some added Afro-Cuban and Middle Eastern percussion.
Great. And it looks like this one, the liner notes talk about this starting as a remote collaboration in 2021. Can you talk a little bit about that, how that came to be?
So I had been visiting Belgrade for years. My wife is from Serbia, and so we would go and visit her relatives, my in-laws, and one of the first times I think the first time I visited, I wrote that tune, Belgrade, the one we just listened to, and titled it Belgrade because I wrote it in Belgrade. It was kind of reflective of my reaction to the city, and I'd recorded that on a previous CD with a great pianist from Denver, but I always wanted to hear what a pianist from Belgrade would play it like. But at that time, I didn't really know any, and I'd heard of Vasil, but had not met him or heard him play. And then I was in a club in Belgrade. I got the chance to hear him playing at. There's an old kind of medieval castle there, and called Kalamagdan, and he was playing with a jazz fusion trio. Piano, bass, and drums, or what I thought was piano and bass and drums, and they started, and they were great. It sounded like Weather Report or something like that, and then all of a sudden I hear a guitar solo, and I was going like, I'm confused. Why is there a guitar solo here? And then I looked and I realized that the person I thought playing bass was actually playing guitar, and Vasil was playing left-hand bass. And for the entire set, he played left-hand bass, and it was amazing. I was staggered to see that someone could improvise like that with independent bass lines. I mean, most pianists can play a walking bass line and improvise against that, but he played syncopated, complex bass lines, and I was just kind of knocked out. And I said to myself, if I ever get a chance to play with that guy, I really would like to. And so the pandemic rolled around, and I reached out to him and sent him a lead sheet and recording of the tune, and asked him if he'd be willing to collaborate on a remote collaboration for that tune, and he agreed. And so the way I structured that, so this was kind of in the middle of the pandemic, and I did a demo of me playing piano and sequencing bass and then overdubbing drums. And I sent him what's called the stems, the parts of the tracks, the drums separated, the bass separated, and then my demo piano. I sent it to him and asked him to overdub and do his piano version. He sent it back to me, and it just blew me away because he's played it so well. And then I had a bass player from Seattle, Chris Seimer, overdub bass. And then finally, I had my friend from Portland, Brad Dutz, terrific percussionist, overdub percussion, and that was the first track of the CD. And so I used that demo to apply for a grant from Eastern Washington, and fortunately, I was given a grant from Eastern to do a full CD. So the subsequent tracks were all recorded in Belgrade at a studio, like a suburb of Belgrade called Pančevo. And we recorded 7 tracks there with Vasil and bassist Martin Gyakonovsky, who's a renowned bassist from Macedonia. And but he lives in Germany and plays with tons of people. the radio big band in Cologne, different folks like that. So he's one of the top bass players in Europe.
How many days did you spend in the studio?
Just 2, but they were very productive, and we got everything done. They were very impressive. They came really well prepared. I'd sent them the music beforehand, and we immediately were cutting finished tracks right from the jump.
Excellent. Well, so let's go ahead and listen to another track from this. Would you like the title track, Native Son?
Yeah, Native Son would be great.
Great. You're listening to the voice of Mike Waldrop, who's here live in the studio with me, celebrating the release of his brand new CD, Native Son, on Origin. and that's called Native Son. That comes from Michael Waldrop's brand new CD on Origin record of the same title, Native Son. And I have Michael Waldrop in the studio with me today. And what's the inspiration for that composition?
Well, I was writing new music for the CD, and I wanted to do something over. This is a drum technique thing. I like to play over certain ostinato foot patterns, and I had one that I particularly liked, which is a 4-against-3 pattern in the feet, and but it's actually a 3/4. It's in 3/4 time, and I wanted to write a tune that I could use that technique, and so that was really simply what it is. And I started writing and trying to figure out what would work for me, and I came across this pentatonic idea, and I thought it sounded kind of American Indian, or certainly kind of native, and I found some other sections to the tune. There's some 5/8 bars in there, so it's not completely in that 3/4 groove, but that's what I came up with. So as far as the title goes, Native Son, I was trying to reflect in the title what I felt about the tune. I was thinking about American Indians, and then I thought about Spokane, the Children of the Sun, Spokane, and the initial title was Native Son, S-U-N, but then I decided at the end to morph that to Native S-O-N.
And how did the tune change from the moment you first started with that ostinato into what we hear here today? How much of that was all pre-composed, and how much do we hear from the musicians who collaborated with you?
Well, the intro until the first piano solo is all basically my melodic composition. They offered a lot of input in terms of phrasing and tempo, different things. But yeah, it's like the first third of the piece and the last quarter of the piece would be exactly as I composed it. But we're improvising the accompaniments, so throughout there's slight improvisations. That's kind of the nature of jazz ensemble performance. But yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, it sounds beautiful. And you wanted to talk about Pythia, the speaking water, which is track 3 on the record. And the title changed from when you first started it until what we see here. Do you want to talk about a little bit of that inspiration?
Yeah, so this is probably my favorite track from the album, actually. It's something I hadn't... a style I hadn't exactly written before. So I actually wanted to try and write a composition using minor major 7th chords, and also using augmented major 7th chords. Those types of chords are like the alter egos of each other, and especially augmented major 7th chords are really kind of unique, hard to play over, and so that was the intent. And I felt like I created this kind of mystical sound, and it sounded like ancient music to me. And so my initial title was, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, was Mirror of Galadriel. I was basing it on that scene from where in Lord of the Rings, where Galadriel is divining the past and the future by looking over a ball of water. And then I started reading more about past history, and I came across the story of the Oracle of the Delphi, who was known as the Pythia. And the Oracle of the Delphi would divine the past and the future while meditating over waters in Delphi. And so that's I'm trying to conjure an ancient image, and two things. The musicians really helped a lot. Vasil and Martin are both from Macedonia, which is close to Greece, the northern part of Greece, basically. And so I felt that they had some kind of maybe just proximal connection to that. But so I thought they really did a great job of realizing the composition, and also Brad Dutz, who I had overdub on percussion. Brad has done a lot of movie soundtracks, especially like the Star Trek movies, and he introduced the sound called the waterphone, which is basically a bowed instrument with metal tines that stick up, and you bow the tines, and it's connected to a chamber, a metal chamber filled with water. And it sounds like a whale call, kind of, or just really mysterious sounding. I had actually never heard it before, and Brad decided to use it on his own, and it was like perfect. So that helped me kind of divine the title from the sounds that they were making. So I called it Pythia, the Speaking Waters.
Excellent. Well, let's go ahead and listen to that. You're listening to the voice of Michael Waldrop, and we're going to listen to Pythia, the Speaking Water, from his brand new release, Native Son. Thanks for tuning into Spokane Public Radio. Pythia, the Speaking Water, from Michael Waldrop's brand new CD, which is called Native Son and released today on Origin Records. Now, I have Mike in the studio with me today, and there are some unusual chord structures on, well, not unusual, but maybe difficult or challenging chord structures on that you talked about before we played the track. But the pianist dealt with it so beautifully.
Yeah.
Would you like to extend about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, the composition is mine, but those augmented major seventh chord sections I myself couldn't improvise over, and I was really overjoyed at the way he interpreted the and improvised over that with such facility. And so I feel like that's kind of a tour de force performance on that particular tune by the pianists.
And with this set of musicians and being recorded in Eastern Europe, would you like to speak a little bit about the lineage or the historic importance of European jazz?
Yeah, Europe has become, I don't know if I would say the second home or but another home for jazz. I feel like in some ways it's sometimes better received in Europe than it is in the United States, which is ironic, considering that it's American music. But I think just it's kind of a connoisseur's music, sophisticated music, and Europeans in general have a well-developed appreciation for fine art, and so that's the only thing that I can, only way I can, only reason I can see that would be the case, that jazz in certain ways is more popular in Europe than it is in the United States. But sadly, I think that there's some truth in that.
Yeah, it's definitely a story we've heard. And do you feel like the rhythmic delivery is different? And of course, there's so many ways to play and so many influences. But do you feel like there's a difference in whether there's swing present or the straightness, anything like that? Do you notice any trends?
Well, not so much anymore. For me, recording this album was a revelation from a certain point. So the style of music I write is, a lot of my music would be termed the ECM style, which is a record label, European jazz label, which is kind of a mixing of different styles of classical, world music, and jazz. So, and a lot of that would be not swung music. It would be syncopated, but not necessarily swung like swing music. But there are a couple of swing tunes on this album, and the next track we're going to play is like that. It's basically an altered blues, and Vasil and Martin were phenomenal on it. They sounded great, and I mean, whether it sounded like American musicians or not, I mean, you wouldn't know from listening to it. I mean, their phrasing and interpretation was great for me. And they play blues really well. I did feel that it was maybe slightly different than the American interpretation of blues, but it would be really hard to define that difference. I couldn't really put it into words. It's just something I feel. But they play swing and swing styles and straight-ahead jazz with impeccable authority. So I don't think there's much difference anymore. I mean, musicians are kind of international anyway, and I think that the European musicians have just as much to offer as American musicians.
Now, you teach at Eastern Washington University, and what is your position there?
I'm the percussion professor there, so I teach people how to play anything related to percussion that I'm able to teach. So that would be vibraphone, marimba, all the battery instruments of the orchestra, snare drum. Did I say timpani already? I think I did. But I also play a lot of drum set. And so I teach students how to play drum set. For me, drum set's a touchstone instrument that I spend a lot of time working on. So.
And you've also been able to bring some guest artists in, percussionists. Who are some of the highlights that you've had into the university in the last few years?
Well, we had Joe Locke on vibraphone, which was amazing. We had Dave Samuels about 12 years ago. We got him before he passed away on vibraphone. Drummers, we've had Greg Bissonette, another friend of mine from Serbia, Marko Djordjevic. We had Carl Allen here, which by Rachel helped bring. And I'm trying to think. Lots of great artists. So we continue to do that. And yeah, that's my day gig. It's really my total gig for the around here in Spokane. So
Sure. Now, the selection El Vino is a straight ahead tune from Time Within Itself. Was that recorded on this project as well?
Yeah, so I wrote that tune. This is co-written by myself and Jack Cooper, who's a great composer, arranger who arranged all of my big band stuff. And we co-wrote this tune. It's kind of a heavily altered blues, at least in the solo section. And the name is a pun on Elvin Jones. It's El Vino, which means the wine in Spanish. But that was kind of I think a nickname used for Elvin, Elvino. Elvin, no, maybe not. It's just a pun on El Vino, but it sounds a little bit like Elvin. And he's a big hero of mine, one of the great drummers, jazz drummers of all time, John Coltrane's drummer. And so I was trying to live up to the legend of Elvin and did my best on this track. But Vasil and Martin sounded amazing on it. You'll hear Vasil's sounds like Herbie Hancock on this, or he sounds like Vasil, but very high level playing on this track.
Excellent. Well, let's go ahead and listen to that. You're listening to the voice of Michael Waldrop, and we're celebrating the new release of the CD Native Son, which is out today on Origin Records. Thank you so much for coming in, Mike, and playing for us and talking with us. This is El Vino.